This is the Chefpreneur podcast, where we inspire professional cooks to take on greater risk to build a personal chef business for themselves. Now, here's your host, Andres Hinojosa.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Chefpreneur podcast. My name is Andres Hinojosa and I am your host. Thank you again so much for tuning in. I just wanted to start off by saying how truly honored I am that you guys are tuning in and listening to this podcast that I'm putting out. I've had several people tell me that it has literally changed their lives and their mindset, and they think differently because of the information in this podcast. And it brings me so much fulfillment to know that you guys are out there listening and that you are taking what I'm saying and it's adding value to your life. There's nothing more rewarding, I think, than that. So I just wanted to start off by really saying thank you. I also wanted to just mention that we will be having another free web class on how to start your own personal chef business on April 18th. So you can go to the chefpreneurwebinar.com. That's the chefpreneurwebinar.com. Chefpreneur is spelled chef, P-R-E-N-E-U-R. So the chefpreneurwebinar.com. Go there, sign up for our free web class. We'd love to have you on there. And it's a good hour class and an hour session. And we're going to teach you 3 secrets on how to really start your own personal chef business for $500 or less. So can't wait to see you on that training. With every podcast, we like to start out by answering a question from all of you that have come in either through our Facebook movement group or just straight up through an email. And this question comes from Maria. And Maria says, is there a good formula on how to structure your prices for your services for weekly clients, one-time sporadic events, and also what factors do you consider in making your quotes? Great question, Maria. So I'm going to do something a little unorthodox today. I'm actually going to answer that question in today's podcast because, Maria, you've asked pretty much the same question that a lot of you have asked about pricing your services. So today's podcast is titled, What Should I Charge for my services? Okay. So we're going to actually dive right in here because I think there's so many different angles to this, and there's a lot of different methods out there that personal chefs are using to charge for their services, right? There's hourly, there's flat rate, there's per day, there's per meal, there's per person. The sky's unlimited when it comes to really charging your clients. Now, I'm a little biased because I feel that the way I charge is the best for me. Now, I'm going to tell you and show you how I charge for my clients in my personal chef business today. But first, I want you to know that whatever way you charge, there's really no right and wrong way. I just do think that there's a way and a better way, if I could say it like that mildly, right? So I don't want to offend anyone today in the sense of how you're charging your client, because you might be out there, you might have your own personal chef business and you're charging by the hour. And if you feel comfortable and confident charging by the hour, then so be it. I'm against charging by the hour, and I'll tell you why here in a few minutes. But personally, what I look at when I'm looking at charging a client is what the scope of the work that I'm doing, right? So Maria kind of had a question of if it's a weekly client, meaning that it's probably a meal preparation service of some sort, or if it's a sporadic event, like a private event, which is what I specialize in my personal chef business, Dinner with a Chef. We don't do any weekly meals for anyone. Now, we've had occasional clients that have come in to stay in San Diego, and they've asked if we can come prepare some meals for them for, the next couple, 3-4 days or throughout the week during their stay. And we don't say no, but we do kind of do a custom quote for that, but we don't advertise that on our website. We don't advertise that to clients that are usually calling us, asking if that's a regular thing we do locally, right? And so the reason why I'm saying that is because no matter which services that you offer in your personal chef business, you want to make sure that you're charging the right way. And I want to tell you the number one reason why I think you need to charge by the person. So I'm going to unleash that out of my bag. You want to charge by the person, and you want to pass on the grocery cost to the client. Now, I'm going to tell you the single most important reason why I firmly believe you should not charge by the hour or even charge, like just a flat rate for how many ever people it is. Okay. And I'm going to tell you that for several reasons. Number one, the most important reason is because it's the least confusing for the customer. I will repeat that. It's the least confusing way to charge the client or the customer. Okay, let me give you an example. Recently, I was on a masterclass call or a one-on-one mentorship call actually with Chef Josh up in Seattle. And we were looking on Yelp and we were going through, we were finding some different people, different personal chefs in his area through Yelp and just kind of, moseying around, looking at the competition. And as we clicked on someone, we actually contacted someone in the Seattle area. And again, we won't mention any names or anything like that, but she was very gracious, very, very kind. We gave her a call. She answered our call, and I was pretending that I was going to do an event for 10 people. And I believe, I don't remember if I did, said I was doing a 3-course or a 4-course menu, or I was interested in something like that. And what really blew me away about when I contacted her was that her first reaction was to start to talk about price. Right. And, she was getting a little bit of information from me. And I teach very strongly about how to control the conversation when you're on a sales call for your personal chef services. And I did say sales call. Most of you out there may be thinking like, what? I thought people would just contact me like on the phone and just ask me my prices and ask them to send them a proposal. And that's how you get business. Well, I don't teach that in the program. I teach a very specific method that I use in my personal chef business that gets incredible results through a sales call. And I want to control that sales call. So what really took me back was when she started talking and she didn't really dive in. Definitely, she wasn't doing the techniques that I do in my business, which again, I'm not saying hers are wrong and mine are right. I'm just saying I know I have a large level of success doing and talking about my services in the way that I do, right? But within about probably a minute and a half, she started throwing out numbers. She started telling me her pricing, and I didn't even ask for her pricing. And one of the things that she said was, I charge by the hour. And I said, oh, okay. So how does that work, right? Simple question, right? So she tells me she charges by the hour. My immediate response, as if I was a client or a customer, would say, how does that work? Like, do you charge by the hour when you show up to my house? Do you charge for the time that you're at the grocery store? Do you charge for the time that you're cleaning up my kitchen? And if you say yes to all those, it still now is confusing me more as a client. Let me tell you why. Now you're allowing my mind as the client, as the customer, their mind is going to start to wander. Now, are they really sitting there thinking, well, how long does it take you to shop? Or realistically, how long does it take you to clean my kitchen? They're probably not coherently thinking that at the front of their mind, but subconsciously they are thinking like, how are you going to charge me, right? Where can I cut some cost here? And so you give them an open-ended kind of price in a way. Think about that, right? It's kind of like, well, what if they hit traffic on their way from the grocery store? Do they pause the time there, or do they still, is it still being charged to me? Like, why would I pay for them to be in traffic, right? I recently had another conversation with someone in our Chefpreneur Facebook group, which is the Chefpreneur Movement Facebook group. And this gentleman was in Georgia, and he was telling me that he lives a couple hours from Atlanta. And he was saying, I'm getting a lot of requests through Thumbtack, and I'm wanting to quote, but how do I quote? Do I quote, with like a travel fee involved or whatever? And very simply, I responded to him, absolutely not. Right? I told them, if you're going to charge for a travel fee, what you're going to do is you should quote them a price per person cost for your services that includes what you would feel comfortable driving, an hour and a half or 2 hours away to Atlanta to do the event and come home, right? So it's, it's a 4-hour turnaround, whatever you feel comfortable in doing and charging that. So for instance, if it was the same 10 people and you're saying, hey, you know what? Normally in my area, I would charge $70 per person, but in this case, I'm going to charge 85. I'm not going to tell the client, don't tell the client you're charging extra for the travel. You're just giving them your price. You're saying, well, it's $85 per person plus the cost of groceries. So in your case, 85 times 10 is $850 plus grocery costs, right? And if they agree to your price, they don't care where you're coming from. They don't care if you're driving 4 or 5, 6 hours. They really could care less. They don't care if you live down the street from them. They care about the service that you're going to provide for them and them knowing how you're going to charge that and what's all included in your services, right? So getting back to the hourly, this personal chef that I was talking to, then she started to kind of like put herself into a corner. And this is the reason why I teach against charging by the hour. As I started to ask more questions, she started backing up, into a corner. And what I mean by that is she started saying, well, if you'd like to do the grocery shopping, you could do that to save some time and save some money. Or, if you wanted me to spot clean and you can clean up the rest. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm listening to this as if I was a client on the other end, okay? A client is hiring, I don't even want to go into all that, but a client is hiring you way more than just the food. I've talked about it on this podcast religiously all the time, right? In fact, just my last podcast, more value equals more money. You want to give them more value. Doesn't mean that you have to give, do all these things and here's this 15-point checklist that we do for the price you're getting. No, but the perception of the value you're giving them is worth a lot of money, right? They don't want to clean up their own kitchen. This is part of the reason why they're hiring you. They don't want to go around grocery shopping, being in traffic, stuck at the grocery store, waiting in a long line. You know how it is. It's just a pain in the rear end, right? But then what was crazy about it to me was here's a chef who, again, I have nothing bad to say about her. I don't know her food. She seemed very nice on the phone, but I would assume that as a chef, we want to buy our own groceries. Like, think about that. Like, what happens if this gentleman is buying some, off the truck, 75% discount chicken, and it's like, 1 day old or like expiring that day, and you're cooking it and it smells bad, and you're like, what is this? And then, so now it's going to reflect on your services and your product and the standards that you have when you're putting it out. So, hello, as a chef, wouldn't you want to source your own products and your own ingredients at the grocery store? Meaning, like, when you pick up a tomato, you want to make sure that you're getting a good tomato, because as well as if someone's hiring you to cook for them, most of the time they don't cook themselves very often. And even if they do, with all due respect, we're chefs, we're cooks, we know how to pick out produce, we know how to pick out groceries better than they do. It's just, with all due respect, that's just how it is. We have high standards. So getting back to it, charging by the hour just leaves so much room for interpretation from the client. And there's a mantra that StoryBrand uses, which is a kind of a marketing messaging company that's out there. And I've gone through their program, and they talk about that if you confuse the customer, you lose the customer. And I've said it on this podcast before. And so right off the bat, you're confusing with how you're charging. You're just confusing them. Right? Now, wouldn't it be a lot simpler to say, hey, this is what I charge. I charge $85 per person times 10, which is $850 plus groceries. And, depending on what groceries you want or what meal you want. So if you want surf and turf filet mignon with shrimp, it's going to cost more than chicken. I mean, we all know that that's the way the world is, right? It's going to cost more than chicken. And so your groceries is going to be dependent on what the menu is. And so it makes it very clear, and you can give them an estimate on that, which is what I do in my business. I give them an estimate, and I'm pretty good at giving estimates as well now because I've given, hundreds of estimates of groceries out to clients anyway. And so then it just leaves no confusion. Well, what's included in that $85 per person? Well, we do all the shopping. We come to your house. We do all the prepping. We clean. We cook. We serve you all. We even have some, there's even additional touches that I talk about in my program that you can offer in your services that really give them that extra value, that extra added value. And you just tell them, for $85 a person, this is all that's included. And so you don't have to worry about, and I even say this in my business, you don't have to worry about a thing, Mr. or Mrs. whatever. You have to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the evening with your company and your friends and your guests, and I do all the work. Now, think about that. If you're on that side of it, if you're the client, and there's a chef telling you, this is my price, plus the cost of groceries, that's it. I don't care if you hit traffic. I don't care how long the line was at the grocery store. I don't care if you had to go to 3 grocery stores to find basil, because no offense, that happens quite often. it won't matter to anyone, and it won't matter to them. They do not care. They don't care if you spend an hour cleaning their kitchen, 45 minutes cleaning their kitchen. As long as it's clean and you do a great job at it, they don't care, right? Because they know they're getting XYZ for this price, right? And so it's kind of a way of charging flat rate, but charging a price per person as a rate is easier for them to understand as well. Now, let me give you another example. When I first started my business, I did charge by the hour. And again, I quickly, as I just discussed, found out that was a no bueno. I didn't really like charging by the hour. And it was very apparent to me eventually that I was running around and I was charging by the hour. One of my billionaire clients that I talk about in my webinar, and I was charging by the hour, and she paid me well by the hour. I'm not going to lie that way, but there was days where I came in and I cooked her a piece of swordfish and did a salad for her, and it was 3 hours worth of my work, worth of my time, and I charged her $40 an hour, and it was, so I left with $120, and $120 again is not bad, but for 3 hours for me to go to the house all the way 45 minutes away from my house, deep into Rancho Santa Fe, get there, do everything, cook, clean. It's like you kind of feel like a whole day was wasted, and it was only for $120. Okay. So eventually my method of charging by the hour just didn't work. Then the next method I charged was a flat rate. Now, again, I just told you about the way I charge now, which is a price per person flat rate or price per person fixed cost, right? Fixed price per person. But what I used to do was I used to do a flat rate, and meaning that I used to say, well, you know what, forget this hourly stuff. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and start charging, like if I cook for between 2 and 6 people, I'm going to charge $250. And from 7 people to 10 people, I'm going to charge $350, right? And what I quickly realized was it kind of sucked for both me and the client. And let me tell you again why. If I was cooking for 10 people or cooking for 7, I'm making the exact same amount of money, right? I'm making the $350 or whatever I charged. Now, the client, the same way. They're thinking to themselves, well, for an extra probably $20, $30, $40 worth of groceries, I should invite 3 of my friends if I have 7, and he's going to charge me the same as if I'm, having 10 people over at my house, right? So there was times where my clients felt a little gypped and I felt a little gypped. And I think, well, if both of us kind of are feeling gypped and sometimes I have the upper hand and sometimes they have the upper hand, it's probably not a good way of charging your services. So again, I settled on a price per person. So in my personal chef business right now, I have 2 services, 2 packages that I offer. One is called my signature service. It's a 3-course family style, serving. It's served, it's a 3-course from a specific set of menus that I've created, and it's served family style. So it's a lot easier for me to execute. It's more of a casual setting for my clients, and I charge $60 per person plus the cost of groceries. Then I have what I call my tailored service, which is a 4-course, and it can be served family style or it could be served plated, and I call it my tailored service, and it's $90 per person plus the cost of groceries, and the menu is completely 100% customized. I customize it with the client, and I won't get into the details about all the service as far as waiters and things like that, because I actually do include the price of the waiter already built in that $90, but to a certain person level of person, and I teach that in the program as well, but it's really simple now. So just for instance, today I got, I had a phone call with a client that's wanting to book me for April 26th. And again, he was like, well, what are what are the services that you offer? I broke them down just the same way I did for you. I said, on one hand, you just select from three courses limited to 1 entree from these menus over here. It's served family style, meaning it's on platters or like a mini buffet, and it's $60 per person plus the cost of groceries. And we do not include gratuity because I don't believe, I don't believe forcing anyone to pay gratuity. I just don't like that myself personally. And there's no taxes, there's no fees, there's no anything added on to it. And I always tell the client, all you see on your invoice is the price per person cost and the grocery cost, and that's it. There's nothing hidden. There's no weird, whatever numbers crunched in there, service fee and travel fee and whatever else, all these fees. And what the clients always say is, wow, that's easy. Wow, that's simple. And when I hear them say that, I know that I'm doing something right. Because now it's up to them to make a very easy decision because now they know how much it is. Now, going back to that flat rate pricing, like I said before I was charging the same amount of money from 7 people to 10 people. Well, now let's say that there's an add-on. So let's say, let's take my $60 per person example, my signature service, and someone, says, hey, you know what, chef, I'm booking it for 8 people. Okay, 8 times 60, $480. So I'm charging them $480 for the service. And what happens is, as I show up, right, to kind of like, let's say we're gearing up, and the day before they say, you know what, we just had some in-laws come into town and we're going to have 2 more joining us. Well, guess what? I just tacked on another $120. And the crazy thing is really probably not going to be a huge difference for in me personally to actually cook for 8 to 10 people, right? It's not it's very small difference to prep and cook, for 10 people as opposed to 8. But now I'm charging that extra too. And because they know the simple pricing and because they have it figured out, they know what to expect. They know that when they see the invoice, there's going to be 10 people instead of 8 on the invoice. And now it's going to be $600 instead of $480. And it's not rocket science to them. They don't have to sit here and think about like, oh, how many more hours are going to take them? And think about it. If you were charging by the hour, and the customer did that as well, because again, going back to my original point when I was discussing this with the chef I found on Yelp up in the Seattle area, I was asking her, well, what if we had a couple more people join? We might have 2 or 3 people extra. Like, does that going to affect the price a lot? And she kind of didn't even know what to tell me. She was like, well, you know what? It might be a little bit more time to prep. So think about it. If I'm charging $40 an hour, or you're charging $40 an hour for your services, and someone says, hey, you know what? I know I booked you for 7 people, but I'm going to have 9 people now. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to sneak in 1 more hour in there. Well, you're going to cook for 2 extra people and you're going to make an extra $40. Like, woohoo, that's not a lot of money. With as me, they upped it 2 people and it's an instant $120. And it's very clear for everyone that's involved, including the client, that they know they're going to pay an extra $120 plus, probably, no offense, probably only like a $30 bump in the groceries, if that, $30 to $40 bump in the groceries, depending on what they're eating. So it makes it very clear and concise. So I wanted to really answer Maria's question in today's podcast and also answer your guys' question out there, because I've gotten a lot of people asking me how to charge. And, I have a formula of how in the program, I actually created a formula that allows you to see what you should charge for your minimums for your weekly meal preparations, because weekly meal preparations are a little different. I don't charge, if I was going to charge them, but I teach in the program, the way I set it up in the pricing formula I have in the program is that it gives you a range and it gives you a minimum that you're supposed to charge. And I always recommend charging a minimum regardless, right, of how many people it is. Like, you have to have a minimum. But I tell you and I teach you in the program a formula that you can take literally and put in the numbers that you need to put in, that we kind of ask you several questions. And then from those numbers, we plug it into a formula that spits out kind of a preliminary price per person or minimum charge that you're going to be charging your client. And then you can take that preliminary number and then look at your skills, your area that you live in, maybe what a couple other, you want to kind of price comparison yourself with a couple other people. You don't have to do that, but you can kind of get a feel of, and it's going to base upon your confidence level. And if you're just starting this business and, if you've done this before and how experienced you are and how confident you feel like what you can charge. And so you can always raise your prices. So honestly, like, as long as you're hitting your minimums, you don't need to go crazy and start to exuberate the cost and try to make all this money, because it's going to come naturally as you get more confident. You're going to start, getting busier, and people are going to want your services more and more. And eventually, when you raise your prices, they're just going to pay your prices because of how well you're doing and how well you're serving them, right? So in the Chefpreneur program, like I said, I devised a formula that literally teaches you it spits out the number of what your minimum charge should be. And then based upon that, you can increase it. But I give you a range of not to go over a maximum and definitely not to go under this minimum. No matter what part of the United States you live in, I literally teach you should never go lower than this minimum. And I won't tell you that number because it took me a while to create this pricing formula. And then I teach you never to go above this number unless it's something that's like, it's not a normal thing, but I'm saying for your normal prices, not to go above this specific formula number in the formula, so you can kind of get that range and you can feel like you can adjust yourself in that range of where you feel comfortable and what you feel comfortable charging your clients when you first start your personal chef business. So I hope that helps you guys. Hey, you know what? you know what? I want to just put a plug in again for our webinar that's coming up April 18th. Mark your calendars. Go to thechefpreneurwebinar.com. Sign up, register for this free web class. We're going to teach you how to start your own personal chef business for $500 or less. And you don't have to quit your job to do it. You can do this and start it part-time. And I'm going to teach you and show you how to do that. And we're going to give you 3 secrets on what it takes to actually get that done. So go ahead, sign up, thechefpreneurwebinar.com. That's the Chef, P-R-E-N-E-U-R webinar.com. You can also download our free ebook that we have. If you go to becomeachefpreneur.com, that's become a chef, P-R-E-N-E-U-R.com. Go to becomeachefpreneur.com, download our free ebook. If you're really serious about starting a personal chef business, this is the first place I would start with, is just download this free resource. It's about a 26 page ebook, and it gives you a really great overview on how to start your business and all the components that we teach in our program. It's kind of all summarized, a little bit of like an overall summary of what our masterclass is. And it's a really good book, and it's a really quick read. You can read it in like 30, 40 minutes, if even that. And it just gives you, again, a very high view summary of what it takes to start your own personal chef business. So, hey, I'm Andres Hinojosa. Again, we're here to motivate, educate, and inspire all chefs and cooks to take that leap of faith, start their own business, and create experiences they want to create in their own life without anybody holding it back. We truly believe here in the Chefpreneur movement that the future is yours and you can put it into your own hands. You don't have to put it in the hands of some JOB, which stands for just over broke. You can put it back in your own hands, take control of your life, and become a chefpreneur. So once again, this is Andres Hinojosa signing off, and I can't wait to see you guys next week and talk to you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Chefpreneur podcast, where we want to educate, motivate, and inspire as many chefs to become their own boss. Please subscribe to the podcast and join us every week to be part of the movement. To sign up for our free online web class, visit thechefpreneurwebinar.com.